I'm a mystical life coach at Masters of Self University, and my name is Danny Morley, and this is all about me walking the mystical path and becoming the ways of oneness. So let's start right there. I've got several copies right here. Here's my good old tattered one that's well and truly been read through and beaten up. This is The Universal Ways of Oneness, taught by Rachel Fiore. The book's titled Taught by a Spirit of an Enlightened Dog, but this is Rachel's work. This is what she brought into this lifetime. And it's all about the 20 ways of becoming an enlightened being, starting with responsibility and leading all the way up to harmony. And this channel is going to be about my journey on becoming them, of learning how to heal myself at the deepest level, how to go in and identify the programs that I'm running, the wounds that I have that disconnect me from my soul and from my heart, and then the journey that I'm walking, this path, this what feels like a treacherous path, especially right now in November 2024, of integrating and healing and elevating my consciousness. That's everything that Rachel is teaching and bringing to this earth, is how to become a more elevated, enlightened being, and to embody the teachings of oneness consciousness. Now, in previous times, there was Christ consciousness, and what she is bringing to this world is a higher form of enlightenment, is oneness consciousness. And yeah, I'm devoted. I've devoted my life to becoming them. And to learning from her and to healing myself, because I truly believe that this planet could be one of heaven on earth. It really could be a very beautiful place for us to live. But we have to choose to create that. We have to choose to actually create heaven on earth. And, well, how do we do that? Well, we have to first awaken to the fact that this isn't heaven on earth that we're creating. The world we're living in today, in 2024, is anything but. There is a lot of war, there is a lot of misogyny, there is a lot of just inequality across the board, a lot of harm being done to ourselves, harm being done to one another, and of course the animals and the environment and this amazing planet that we live on and in and we come from. There is a lot of harm just being perpetuated across the world, in and around. And that is the first step, is recognizing where we lack love, and not just this idea of love, and not something that we read about or saw in the movies or fantasized this romantic idea of love, the true vibrational experience of love. And what does that mean, and how do we bring it into not just our romantic partnerships, but every aspect of our life? And from what I've learned over my journey of life, it's the traumas, it's the wounds, it's those that wounding, that pain that's in there, that pulls us down to a lower level of consciousness, and then combine that with the collective programming and conditioning that is done by the few people who have all the power and control in the world, which is very, very skillfully done to keep us very brainwashed, manipulated, weak, and disempowered. And so when you combine those two, all of the trauma and all of the collective conditioning and just our lack of consciousness, it leads to creating a lot of inequality, a lot of harm, and just not heaven on earth. We're living in hell. And it's funny, because when you're really, truly unconscious and completely unawakened in any kind of way, you wouldn't realize how bad this place is. And that was me for a number of years. I was completely oblivious to it because I lacked the divine power to be able to look at the places I lack divinity. And so we justify, we rationalize, we are in our minds, and we see other people causing harm or doing shameful things, and we're like, well, if they're doing it, it's not that bad for me to do either. And we normalize all of the behavior that we see on the earth that may be less than divine, or we normalize just the way that society is. An easy example is, I grew up in the UK. I live here in San Diego now in the US, but I grew up in the UK, and drinking was a very normal thing to do. Everyone did it, and it was part of the norm and part of the culture to go down to the pub and have a few pints with your friends and get really drunk and get really out of control. And it was completely normal. My parents definitely encouraged it from a young age. It wasn't restricted. And although drinking at home amongst your family members can be a good way to introduce somebody to alcohol instead of going out and doing it, behind closed doors and potentially causing harm to yourself and others that way, it didn't instill the right message, which was, this thing is a toxic poison and you open yourself up to all manner of things to flow through you, including dark demonic forces and entities. And it's a poison. It literally is. It's ethanol. But we've normalized it, and it's the only way we can take the edge off. And it seems to be the collective drug of choice for the Western culture. And why? Because it makes everything easier. We can just forget about everything, all of the stress that's built up throughout the day. If we just have the drink, all of a sudden we don't feel it. It's a way for us to avoid and bypass our pain. We can even use it to justify our actions and say, oh, well, I was drunk. I did do that, but I was drunk. And this was me for a number of years. And it wasn't until I hit rock bottom that I really had to start looking at myself and seeing, okay, how am I really showing up in the world? How am I actually showing up? And this is a quote that Rachel always says. How am I actually showing up in the world versus how I think I'm showing up? And you see, we've been programmed and led to live our entire lives in our mind, because if we live in our minds, we're disconnected from our hearts. We're disconnected from the part of us that we can find our own soul, our own freedom, and live our life from a very elevated state of being and way of being. And if we're trapped in our minds, then we're much more easily manipulated, brainwashed, controlled. We live in fear from the mind. The heart doesn't know fear. It alchemizes fear, actually. It transforms fear. And so that's the process, is learning, okay, where am I living in my mind, which most of us, it's 99% of the time. And then how to make that journey down into my heart and what that experience actually is. And one of the things that Rachel has really, really, guided me and many others on is this journey of heart connection. And, I'm sure there's many teachers out there teaching the same thing. Why? Because that's what we need on the planet. And that's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be heart-centered, heart-led beings. Beings of compassion, beings of equality, beings of harmlessness and gentleness. And funny enough, these are all obviously the ways of oneness. So if you haven't got a copy of that, I'd recommend grabbing it and just giving it a read through. And it will expand you. It did me. And it's a spiritual text that I will constantly go back to again and again and again to keep learning from. And so we almost make this journey from our head to our heart if we truly want to evolve and become an enlightened being. We don't get there through staying trapped in our mind and running our programs of control or whatever it may be, powerlessness and staying disconnected from our true divine selves. We don't get there. We don't get to what we truly came here to do, is to awaken. We came here to remember what we are, who we are, our divinity. And we can't do that journey if we stay trapped in our minds. We can maybe think we're on that path. We can maybe think we're on that journey, but we're not. True awakening and elevation is an energetic process. And that means we must energetically become greater and greater every day. It does take work. It takes willingness and devotion. They are the two characteristics that we stand by at Masters of Self University. Are you going to be willing and devoted? And these are questions that I always ask myself constantly. Am I going to be willing today to my soul's growth and evolution? Am I going to be devoted when times get tough? If I can embody those two divine characteristics of our power of will to be willing and devoted, then we can heal anything. And there may be certain things that our soul has chosen to experience. And those things maybe we can't heal. But 99% of the things that we see in society today, especially disease, it's all healable. And we can get there by finding the root cause, the energy of what is being created, and transforming it at the root level, and then elevating our consciousness up and out of whatever dysfunctional or dis-ease or whatever it is, whatever pattern we're caught in. And that's what this whole channel is going to be about. And that's what my journey of life for the past few years has really been about, is finding my power. And what that means in every situation is going to be slightly different. And that's why there's 20 different ways to become, 20 different ways we can embody our divine power. And the first one starts with responsibility. So let's just start there. The way of responsibility, becoming the way of responsibility, is all about finding our power. And we actually teach a whole course on this. It's called The Power Within. For anyone who needs help on this journey of finding your power, this is what that's for. The Power Within is what we guide all of our clients through, and it's the work that I do on myself every day, which is awakening to my programs. So let's start with identifying why we're programmed. So I mentioned earlier, we have the two main aspects which I really see are the trauma, the pain that we experienced, and then the collective. So the collective programming is obviously there to keep us brainwashed, to keep us disconnected. And the more we're disconnected, we can walk around like robots. And if you want to have an experience of what that means, just don't drink and go into a bar at night time, and just observe. And just observe as a sober person, completely sober. Just observe, not from a place of judgment, never that. Just observe how people behave, how we tend to, as humanity, just look at screens on TV. Now, this is something that I'm fascinated by as a bartender, is I'll watch when there's a game on, people can't help but look at the TV. It's called a TV program for a reason. You're being programmed. This is part of the brainwashing. And whether we're talking about sports or a TV show, these things that are inserted by the collective, by the elites, are inserted into the collective to brainwash and manipulate us to be a certain way. And mainly it's to be disconnected. They dumb us down. They make us very stupid. And that's no insult to us as humans. They just do that. That's the goal of this programming, is to make us dumb and stupid and disconnected. And so it's our job, it's our responsibility to awaken to all of that, to see all of the ways that we're being programmed, to see all of the ways that something outside of me is influencing the choices that I'm making on an unconscious level. So we have obviously our conscious thought, which you can look into, like your Bruce Lipton's, your Joe Dispenzas and all them, and I'll talk all about, your conscious and your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is obviously all of this programming I speak of, right? So we have all of these layers of programs which are embedded into us. When we're born as children, we're looking up to our parents to be programmed. How is it that I'm supposed to behave? There's these really interesting videos that I've been seeing coming out on TikTok where a parent will change the way they react when a child falls over. And based on the parent's reaction, whether they go, the kid will go, when, start to freak out and cry, because it's learning that in this moment when I fall over, they're getting scared and reacting, and I'm supposed to be in pain and respond. Versus I'm seeing these parents, as the child falls over, go, uh-oh, and the kid will start laughing. The same kid, same parent will start laughing and get up. Excuse me. And then they carry on, going about their day. So this is an example of how kids at a young age, from that age, developmental age of 0 to 7, were getting programmed by our environment. We're supposed to come into this world, supposed to have a healthy attachment with our parents, and then we're supposed to mature up and out of that. And during that process, we're supposed to learn from the first divine teachers, our parents, what we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to act and behave in this crazy thing called human life here on planet Earth. And what happens is, because no one is very awakened or enlightened or elevated in their level of consciousness, we end up getting severely programmed and traumatized by our upbringing. And there is an aspect of programs that we absorb from our parents. There is the aspect from society. There is misogyny programs which we've all received and have to work hard on clearing out and seeing through the illusion of all that crap. We obviously have racial programs, which many of us have absorbed. Myself as a white male has to be very aware of, am I running a program of white privilege right now that I'm blind to seeing what's really going on? Okay, these are important things to sit with within ourselves. As a male, I'm even more susceptible to that growing up in such a patriarchal dominated misogynistic world. I have to be very careful. Am I running a program of inferior superiority right now because of my gender? Because we as men have all been programmed that way, that men are superior and women are inferior. And if we buy into that idea, we're going to replay all of that inequality. So part of understanding this and becoming divinely responsible is embodying a certain level of presence. We have to be aware. We have to be the observer, which is the way of oneness number 4, of what it is that we're actually being. What are we doing, right? So we're growing up, we're looking at our parents. We're looking at our parents and we're starting to model their behavior, and we're just absorbing all of their programming. And now you add in any sort of slightly traumatic event. An easy one to share is I was working with a client one time, and she knocked over, when she was a baby, she knocked over a bottle of milk. Like a big giant gallon, like American gallon bottle of milk. And the parent freaked out at her. Oh my God, what have you done? Went in hard. It's obviously just a baby. It was an accident. She didn't know what she was doing. But that develops a very deep program and wound that I'm bad, I'm shameful, I've done something wrong, I messed things up, whatever it is that got created in that moment, right? It can be something so simple as that shifts the entire, now that's like a stream of consciousness which has been created, that I'm bad and I fuck things up and I do things wrong. Now I'm going to replay that for the next however long in my life that it takes me to awaken to the fact that I'm playing out this stream of consciousness. So it's finding all of these moments of trauma that we have and realizing the programs that got created and what we actually needed in that moment. And this is the other part that really allows these traumas to anchor in. It would be another case if a traumatic event happened as we were a child, when we were a child, if we had enlightened parents. If we had parents that knew how to guide us through connecting to our heart, seeing the false beliefs, seeing the false programming that was being created, learning how to process the emotions, we would be able to grow up and out of the traumas that we'd experience. We don't. And instead, what do? We adopt the very programs that our parents had in that moment. So an easy one for me to look at is adopting a program of avoidance and through powerlessness. So when I experience something that I don't like, instead of allowing myself to feel it to its capacity, and this has been me throughout my teenage years, would look for something outside of me, which is what we've all been taught to do in separation consciousness, to feel better. What was that? Alcohol. And this goes back to what I was saying about earlier. Alcohol is a huge way that we learn, especially in the West, to deal with what it is that we're feeling. And if you have gone on a journey with alcohol and you've managed to step away, fantastic. For a number of years, I was trying so hard to do that. The problem that I was facing was I wasn't doing it from a place of power, and I didn't know this work first. So I was trying to change my behavior with another behavior. And what I would learn very quickly is I would get caught in these loops and I would end up back doing the same thing. Why? Because I'm not resolving the trauma that's there. There is a trauma, there is a program, there is a reason why I'm reaching for something outside of me. Why there's an energy of powerlessness. Why there's a program that was created that taught me I need something external. I have to go in and heal that root core wound, and that may take longer than a month or two. That is okay. It may take longer than 1 or 2 sessions. That is okay. That's embodying the second way of oneness, the divine way of patience. Because the truth is we came down to this physical reality to experience space and time. And because we came here to experience time, things don't happen in an instant. They can, maybe, but we came here to experience the slow and gradual evolution of physical matter, of ourselves, of our psyche, of our emotions over time. And so things do take a little bit of time, and that's okay. So becoming the way of responsibility is about starting to go in and take ownership for all of that stuff that I just mentioned. The collective programming, the traumas that we have, anything from our previous life, which you might not, I'm not at a place where I can fully connect to all of my previous lives. If you're not there, me neither, don't worry. But I have had healings that have taken me for sure back into what felt like other lifetimes. So we bring things in from our other life. And if you think that you're just a finite being, because there's a deep fear that I have that that's only the case, that we're born, we experience life, we die, and then we're nothing. That is a genuine fear that I have still not got to the bottom of yet. And I have had many experiences that have shown me that I am the consciousness, I am the infinite being. But for me, that hasn't fully integrated yet. I've had those experiences, but I don't know it to the core of my soul. It's not fully integrated. And again, that's okay, because I'm on this path, and I've read all about that in spiritual books. But that spiritual knowledge that we never die and we're infinite beings, it means nothing. It really means nothing unless it's integrated. So we can hear other people talk about things like that. We take it loosely, take it with an open hand and a pinch of salt, and say, yeah, probably, maybe. Does it feel true in my own heart? Yeah, it feels very true. But for me, there's so much fear there into becoming nothing, and that's obviously my ego. There is so much fear there for me to become nothing, and obviously that's my ego. So we have to go in and start addressing all these different aspects of where this trauma and where these programs originated, and all of that all together, and being able to actually heal it is the way of responsibility, because you're taking full radical ownership of your stuff, of your own life, of becoming the true creator of your reality. Until we really step into the driver's seat and start taking responsibility for our mental health, our emotional health, our financial well-being, our traumas, our past life, the cultural conditioning, the conditioning we had when we were at school, the programming on TV, the programming from the media, until we start to become radically responsible for the way that we actually, not think, but we actually show up in life. Until we arrive there, we don't allow ourselves to step into the role of the creator. And we are the creator. And we almost go through that journey of understanding what that means internally. And how do I create in this reality? Well, if I'm not consciously creating, I'm always unconsciously creating. So even when I think that I'm consciously creating, it's all about what energy I'm coming from. So often, what I think I'm creating, I actually have so many unconscious programs creating and manifesting in my life on a daily basis. And that's why it's so important to go back and do the shadow work, and not just do the shadow work, not just do the inner child healing, but elevate your consciousness up and out of whatever it was that we were experiencing to a higher level of consciousness. That's what it's all about. That's what becoming the ways is all about. And that first way is the way of responsibility. It's not good enough anymore to just say, yeah, I take ownership for that. Yeah, I did that. That was messed up. I feel shame for that. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't good enough. That might sound weird or might be a bit tricky. What do you mean sorry isn't good enough? An apology from the way of responsibility is, I apologize that I did that. I see what I did wrong, and here is what I'm actually doing to transform that aspect of me. And I'm actually doing it. I'm fucking doing it. Because there's a big difference between saying I'm sorry and apologizing for the unconsciousness that you brought to the planet, the wounding that you've shown up in, the trauma that you're replaying right now. And there's a big difference to actually transforming that on the energetic level and finding your own internal power. And that's what this path that I'm walking is all about. Is all about actually moving through the process of reclaiming those parts of us that are caught and trapped in disempowerment, that are caught and trapped in unconscious behaviors, whether that be shameful behaviors of things that we don't really want to do and we feel bad about and we're doing it, whether that's pornography or prostitution or drinking or eating terribly, whatever it is, right? What are we actually doing on the energetic level internally to become something greater? And that starts with awakening to your programs and learning how to connect to your heart. And that's what this channel is all about. Awakening to the program. So I'm going to be talking all about my programming, maybe collective programs, other people's programs, and my journey of connecting to my heart and my soul, and how I'm getting there and how I'm becoming these incredible ways of being, these ways of oneness. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you soon.